Hi, from Bobology.com, this is Bob Cohen, helping adults learn how to use technology for fun and profit. Today's topic is Understanding the Cloud, Part 1, The Basics, recorded live. So thanks for coming. I'm Bob Cohen. I do classes on internet technology and quite a few other things. And so what we're going to cover today is some information about the cloud. I'm more of an Apple user than I am a Microsoft or Google user, but I do use those as well. I use their clouds. I use them. I use Amazon's cloud. I use a couple of other clouds. So I probably have too many clouds. They all work in different ways, and I use them for different reasons. But there's this thing, you can't get your hands on it, right? Where is this cloud that we want to actually work with? And so that's what makes it really confusing to people in terms of what they understand about it. And so hopefully understanding how it works. And then next week, July 3rd, which is the official holiday, but I'm going to do the tech terms, Friday Tech Talk anyway. I'm going to show people with Apple devices how to use the cloud on their Apple devices, specifically iCloud, but we'll talk about a couple of other clouds as well, because all the clouds work on Apple as well. There's some terminology, like anything with technology people love to make up new words, and so there's a whole new language to learn about technology. And I'm lucky in that I grew up learning technology, and so when you learn another language, adding the vocabulary to it becomes easier. But if you're trying to learn a language later in life, it becomes a challenge. And so I sympathize with you, because I've tried to learn ballroom dancing, and I've tried to learn a couple of languages like Ukrainian and others, and it's a struggle. So I understand what you're going through in terms of learning technology if it's new to you. We'll talk about what you can do with the cloud, and you probably don't know it, but you're using the cloud already. And we'll talk about some different cloud services. And then in the handout, I've got links to articles on my website, Bobology.com, that has a lot of the information that goes into it more in depth, okay? I've worked in technology. I teach a lot of classes. We're getting some good turnout, even with the closure of some of the campuses. Some of the schools like Pasadena City College, where I teach classes on blogging and internet marketing, we're getting some good turnout. Some of the other schools, not so sure, but I'm actually helping other instructors learn how to do online training as well. So that's something. This is part of that vocabulary I'm talking about, okay? These are terms that you probably never use in your daily conversation, and I understand. But if you can tell them to your family members or kids or adult children or something like that, they're going to be really impressed. Okay, so even if you just walk out with one or two, that's going to be great. We're going to talk about what a platform is and what a device is. We're going to talk about cross-platform software, which is a way that makes your life really, really easier when you're using different platforms. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about software and apps, offline and online, sync and syncing, and a little bit about downloading and streaming. And these are all terminologies that have come about because of new technology on the internet. And so there are things that we don't normally think about all the time, but we use them more and more. And people throw these terms out on a daily basis on the news, on TV shows and movies and other things. And just in daily conversation, somebody will say something and you wonder, what does that mean? And I've given up. I don't worry about being embarrassed anymore. If I don't understand what something means or somebody uses a word, I look it up now, because I just don't want to be ignorant about it. So if you don't understand what a word is and you want more explanation, put your message in chat, or we'll pause for questions, and we'll check hands and see how we do. Okay, so this thing called the cloud, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, internet people that sold computers sold one computer that sat in a big computer room. They took up rooms. You might have had worked in an office or an environment where at one point you walked by a computer room and there were people that were inside doing weird stuff and there were lights flashing and everything like that. And only certain people could get into the room. And then these people started to figure out how to take a cable and plug two computers together, which was kind of interesting. Okay, so they were able to take a cable and they were able to plug one computer into another. But they drew boxes, they drew square boxes. And then they could plug another computer together. And then they figured out how to get people onto a public network called the internet. The internet is a specific type of network, but it's worldwide, it's global, and it's public. It means it's not a private network. It's not like a business, like a bank. It's not like a government network, like our Social Security system, or it's not like an army network or a military network. It's public, which means you might have to pay a fee to get on it, but you can get on the internet and the internet will take care of sending messages around from one computer to another for you. So as we started to talk to businesses who bought and government agencies that bought more and more computers, and we talked about connecting terminals to these multiple computers that were located somewhere, we started drawing pictures of clouds on blackboards when we started explaining, you're just connecting to a bunch of computers out there. That's all it meant. So somebody at their desk or somebody at their computer screen, before they had personal computers on desktops, they just had screens, and people would type a character in, and that character would get transmitted all the way to a computer somewhere in the business. And they didn't know where it was. It was just some room, some building maybe, or not even in the same building. With the internet, it's kind of the same way. We use our desktop, we use our smartphones, we use our laptops, and we get an internet connection, typically from an organization called an internet service provider that connects us to the internet. And stuff goes out and stuff comes back. And usually it works. Okay, so that's the fun part about it. Usually it works. So when we want to get to the internet, most of the time, we as consumers are using a software application called a web browser. The web browser has one goal in life. It's to open and display web pages. Your web pages are actually files that are sent over the internet from the cloud or someplace on the internet to you. And when you ask for a web page, when you do a Google search or you type in an address like google.com or microsoft.com or bobology.com, you're sending a request out to the internet, and the internet's locating that file in that system for you and sending it back to you, and your web browser opens up that file and displays it on your device. So Microsoft has web browsers. With Windows 10, they include one they call Edge, EDGE. They still have Internet Explorer out there, but they work on Windows, okay? Apple makes a web browser called Safari, and it works on Macs, it works on iOS, iPhones, and iPads, and you can also download it for Windows if you want to. So Apple's Safari is another web browser. They all pretty much do the same things. Google has a web browser called Chrome, and Chrome is available on Macs and iPhones, iPads, Windows, Android devices, and Chromebooks. So it's got a little more availability. And then there's Mozilla, which works on all three platforms. It also works on iOS now as well. They're a third-party nonprofit organization that makes a web browser called Firefox that's free to download, doesn't cost anything, and it's not owned by any company. That's called open source software. So those are web browsers. You can use any one you want. And so there's nothing wrong with using any web browser you choose to do, but the web browser connects you to the internet. That's what it's supposed to do. Now, there's these terms that I don't expect to have you test on this, so I'm not going to quiz you later on, so don't worry about it. But I want to just explain a few things. The internet is a collection of computers connected together in a public network. Now, the people that own the computers are private companies, but people like AT&T and Verizon and Spectrum and other companies and Google and Facebook and Apple and Amazon, they own a lot of computers, and they're in big buildings called data centers. That's where they're located. And we get to them over the internet by using what are called URLs, Uniform Resource Locators. It's like the mailing address that the post office uses to deliver a letter to us. A URL tells the internet where a message goes and what it's for. But we use URLs in English because we tend to like words like Bobology and Microsoft and Apple and Google. But computers like numbers, and so they convert number URLs to IP addresses, Internet Protocol addresses, and that's a specific address on the internet. So when you send out a request to Microsoft.com or Apple.com or Google.com in your web browser, the internet is converting that name to a number and sending that message that you want to see a web page to that computer out there and pulling it back. And that's kind of the way Maps works. Whatever map application you're using, and those of you who remember the days of Thomas Brother Maps, you remember those when we buy the books and we have paper maps. And I think if you go to a gas station now and you have to buy a map, they know you're desperate at that point. And so they charge a lot of money for them, but maps are all online now. And the reason they're online is because the map data, the information about the roads, the information about the highways, and information about street numbers and addresses, they're all kept on internet computers that are in the cloud. And when you put in a request through your phone to send out a message to Maps, that message goes out to some computer somewhere that has that map information, and they send it back to your computer or your mobile phone for you. So you don't have to keep a copy of the maps on your device, whether it's a phone or a computer or a laptop. The map is stored somewhere else in the cloud, and you just are requesting information about how to get from where you are right now to some location, and they do all the calculating for you, which is kind of a miracle, isn't it, that they do that kind of stuff. I'm always impressed with what technology people can do about things. The functions of the cloud are not one thing. The cloud can do storage, so it can store things in the cloud. It acts like an accessory disk drive that you have connected to your computer. So just like you have a hard drive or memory in your phone or computer, you can have storage in the cloud, which means it's accessible over the internet, and it's somewhere that is your personal account that is for you, and you're able to get to it when you're on the internet anywhere. Cloud functions can be backup. There's a little bit of a difference between storage and backup, is that sometimes backup changes the way the files look and behave. So like when you do a backup of your phone, whether it's Android or iPhone, your backup is compressed. There's a software application called the backup software, and it actually compresses the file. And the only way you can open it back up is like uncompressing it. Now, if you want easy explanation of how this works, I don't know if you've ever seen those toy sponges that are compressed and you buy them for kids in stores. I remember when my kids, I was raising them and giving them baths, we buy these little ducks and they were compressed into a little ball sponge, and then you put them in water and they look like a duck, right? So that's kind of the equation. You wouldn't know that ball of sponge was a duck just by looking at it. You read a label that said this is a duck when it expands and gets water in it. But a backup file is like that. Storage is an identical copy or a single copy. So you send something to the cloud and you store it in the cloud, and it's accessible the way it would be if it was on your local computer. So that's just a slight difference between backup and storage. If you have a copy of something somewhere, like if you have a copy of a house key, it's a backup of your house key. So storage can be a backup without actually having to be a separate backup. But when people in technology refer to backup, sometimes it's not an exact copy, it's a compressed copy. You can share things in the cloud so that you can share files, you can share photos, and then there's all these applications that work in the cloud that exist as well. So that you've got, like I mentioned, maps and other things. So when you've got a cloud that's working for you, and it doesn't really matter too much whether you're using a tablet, a smartphone, or a desktop or a laptop to get to that information. It's all in one place in the cloud. And that's one of the benefits of having it in the cloud, is that if you don't have your laptop with you and you're at a friend's house, if you had something in the cloud, you could get to it if you had your phone with you, for example. And so that's one of the benefits. And corporations have used the cloud for these types of functions for years. It's just that the prices of everything have come down so that they're available to consumers to use really easily too. Okay, so I'm going to take a breath here and see if we have any questions. Miriam, do we have any questions from chat? Or if anybody wants to unmute themselves and ask a question, I'll try and answer it now.
I don't see any questions in chat.
Have to do it through chat?
Somebody has a hand up?
Joyce.
Dorothy has her hand up. Joyce.
Yeah. Who puts all this information in? Where do they get in other words, anything we want to find, we just search, but where did it all come from?
Could you repeat that again?
Yes. For example, I go to search for information.
Yes.
Who has put all this information into the cloud? It's just amazing.
It is, isn't it? Well, companies put things up in the cloud. So like somebody that's selling products on their store puts it up there. Somebody that writes articles puts it up there. And so they're putting it up there either for profit-making purpose or for nonprofit. Okay, and lots of times you'll see ads in information when you go to visit websites, and they make money from the ads. When you click on ads that appear on the web, that's a form of advertising revenue that website can get. So publishers publish it, but somebody say like Target, or let me take somebody like Pampers that publishes articles about taking care of children. They publish those articles to promote their brand. And so it's a form of marketing and information. And there are some resources that do publish information that charge for it as well, like the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and LA Times. You can read so many articles for free, but then you have to pay to get beyond that limit. So there's different ways people do that. But a lot of people publish information because they're just trying to promote themselves or get visibility out there to people, or provide a useful goal. Like Wikipedia is a completely volunteer-based nonprofit organization, and it has a lot of resources there. But there's information, and then there's stuff that you can use in the cloud yourself, so that there's things like, if you've ever gone to look for a photo, sometimes photos are free to use and legally use them. Sometimes you have to pay to download a photo. So those are types of things that people do as well.
Am I understanding you to say that in the cloud are maps that you can access? Like if I wanted to get a map of France or something, there are maps in there that I can access without having to go through a GPS.
Yes. Google, Apple, Yahoo, a couple of other companies have maps. Now, if you're looking for a map that's specifically like a hiking trail, you might have to subscribe to a service or pay a fee to get access to their specific maps. But Google Maps is a free service that Google provides, and they have maps, and they actually let you even download the maps to your local device so that you don't need to have an internet connection to actually view the net map at some point. So when I was in France and I was taking a trip to Paris, I downloaded the Google map for Paris that's available, and then I had it on my phone whether I had an internet connection or not. But I had internet pretty much everywhere.
Okay, so you can get street maps too then.
Oh yes, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Most people, they don't. I haven't known of anybody that's bought a map in a long time that's actually paid for a paper map. But some people do like them still.